which I find it very helpful, not only for the kids but for us, which is separating feelings from behavior. And this is something we all usually find ourselves we struggle with when we find that I have certain feelings myself as an adult, and then I say that okay, this is my feelings, and cannot control them, and and for example, like when we come to something like forgiveness, for example, say how can I forgive, and my feelings are not helping me, and usually we have to separate my feelings from my actions. If I have feelings that are hurt, it's okay that I feel hurt. It's okay that we feel whatever we feel. But there's a difference between that I feel something and I act on these feelings. And this is the thing that we ourselves have to understand when we deal with our feelings, and we have also to apply whenever we deal with our children. The whole principle here, principle 4, written in the book, is about this. Kids can feel whatever they feel. They have the right to feel whatever. There's nothing called wrong feeling, but there's something called wrong behavior. So this is the whole idea. You cannot say to somebody like a big boy cannot cry, or you cannot tell me that you hate him or hate her. Okay, he can say whatever. He can express his feeling or her feeling the way he wishes. But what is not allowed is he or she act on a behavior, act on a feeling, and misbehave. In the same way, also the same thing also with us, and this is very helpful not only when we deal with our children, but when we deal even with our hard feelings. So to summarize, the chapter 7 is speaking about taking the side of feelings. When to say to somebody, I understand your feeling. It's okay how you feel. I understand that you are hurt. So in this chapter, the main idea is speaking about children cannot control their feelings, but they can learn not to be controlled by them. So this is again, the whole concept is about this. And again, I go back into, yes, we want to think of this way when we deal with our kids, but I find it even more helpful to us that even we as adults, sometimes we come to a point and say that I have these negative feelings for this person, or maybe I don't feel like I like this person, or I feel hurt by this person. How can I go to communion if I feel that I don't like all of these things? We have to put them aside, but I have to act on my behavior, my action. Again, feelings need to be heard, not to be acted upon. So this is one of the things that's very helpful is when people come to confession and we tell them, okay, express your feelings, say whatever you want. And it will never happen in a confession session that I'm going to say to someone, no, don't say I hate him or I hate her. In the confession, I can say whatever. I can express my feelings the way I like. Because this is helpful that I express myself. What is, again, need to be controlled is the action based on these feelings.
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Don't we need to reconcile between the feelings and the actions eventually as an adult?
The beginning is like I control my actions. I should not act on my feelings.
Okay.
But later on, when I control my actions, eventually my feelings will heal. If I know what I need to do, and I at least I acknowledge that I struggle with my feelings, because my feelings cannot be expressed the way I feel them.
Sure.
Then eventually, one day, these feelings will heal, because I know that these feelings are the raw material. This is something that should not come like this. So eventually, if I control them, they will heal. It's exactly like if I have my skin that's like injured. If I act on my feelings with the injured skin or something, then I go and I hurt the person who hurt me. But if I control myself, I deal kindly, eventually this kind of like injury will be healed and it's okay. So eventually the feelings will be healed if I deal with them in the right way. But these two things will come together to be lined up, the actions and the feelings. So asking about feelings and taking the side of feelings is a powerful way to communicate respect. When we ask our children, how do you feel? And again, sometimes we feel like it's disrespectful as a child would grumble or say that I'm upset or I'm mad or I don't like that you are asking me to go to sleep early. And we feel like this is something disrespectful. No, it's not. We cannot deny them to feel like I don't like you that you tell me this, and this is not fair. That you tell them you cannot dislike what I said. No, we can dislike whatever we say. You cannot tell them don't cry. This is again, crying is not a misbehavior. Crying is okay. He doesn't like what I said to him or her. I cannot tell him how dare you feel that way. This is not something good. Or I don't want to hear it is hard when somebody is struggling with it. I say it's hard to do this. It is hard. You can say to him, it is hard. Yes, I acknowledge it is hard. Yes, but meanwhile, you cannot tell him, don't say it is hard. Condemning the feeling communicate that there is something wrong with them. Because I feel this way, then I am wrong. So we should not condemn anybody's feeling, even when they say something that's ugly. Even if they say, I hate my brother or I hate my sister. Okay? We all experience this. We all experience sometimes bitterness and hatred. It can be something very temporary, transient. It can happen for a minute and it go away and we will forgive. So when we tell him, how dare you say something like this? I cannot imagine that you are saying you are hating your sister or your brother. So when we say something like this, we make them feel ashamed. And this feeling is not good. And this is to communicate something that make them, they learn how to hide their feelings. Hiding their feelings make them all the time to go with sense of guilt. And this is not helpful because all the time they will feel like they are not like anybody else because they feel something that's unique to them. We are not supposed to fix or solve their feelings, just to sit close and to help them work through their feelings. So again, the idea about fixing anybody's feeling, we are not supposed to try to do this. We should understand, but feelings take time. When somebody is saying I'm hurt or I don't like, it's okay. We understand. So this is what us as parents should. I think this is something I did it myself often. That I told my children that okay, no, you don't have, you cannot be upset. And again, I always look at this. This is something that's not right. They can be upset. They can be angry, and they can express the anger the way they like. But again, being angry should not be a permission for them to be disrespectful. Be angry, it's okay. Go to your room, fine. Can go and cry, it's okay. But it's not a license for them to misbehave. Okay? This is something, again, the idea about separating feelings from behavior.
John, can I ask a question? For example, you mentioned if a kid says, I hate my sister, I hate my brother, it's okay for them to say that, but what should be the response of the parents at that?
At the time when they say this, you just like ignore what they said. But you ignore it, but you come back to it later. When they calm down, because when the emotions are like so much, so it is not a time for discussion. It's time to like let them calm down, and then later on, you address it later when they cool down. So come and bring it again and say, what did you mean when you said that? What do you think about this statement? Most of the time, really, they don't mean. So, but it is not something that's good. You go into discussion about this statement whenever things are heated. So, some of the strategies that the author of the book is saying that it's helpful whenever there is this kind of like people are upset with the decision you made, or they are grumbling against a decision you ask them to do something and they don't like it, then sometimes maybe it's good to put names to various feelings. Like, for example, are you mad? Are you sad because the day is come to an end? If you are asking them to sleep, for example, and they want to sleep, and it is okay that you tell them, okay, are you sad because you have to sleep? So this is something that maybe then make them feel like you understand how they feel. Are you frustrated because it's time to sleep? This is helpful for little children, by the way, but this is something that's not helpful at all with a teenager. The teenager will take that you are mocking. Teenager, leave him alone. So another thing that's helpful is to show empathy. When you express understanding, I understand that. Okay, I know that it is very frustrating that you have to go to sleep now. I understand your feelings. Just that making them feel like you are on their side. But at the end of the day, again, you don't have to go and explain why. It is because at that time there is no reasoning. He knows that he has to go to sleep. Going into the debate about why I need to go to sleep is just like you are wearing yourself down for no reason. Okay, it is time to sleep, and that's it. Another strategy is like sharing a wish. Maybe like I wish that maybe the day will be longer. I don't go to sleep now, but you have to. Here, and that's it. This finish that. Like I wish the example. I wish you never had to go to bed, or I wish we could play all the time. But reality is, you have to go to sleep. One of the things that parents also, may be helpful to them to understand that we cannot protect our kids from hard feelings. They will have to go through frustrations and disappointment. Because when we try all the time to make them not to feel like bad, or sometimes parents feel like kids when they cry, it's an alarm for them that they're doing something bad. So they have to go and correct the situation that makes kids to cry, which is disastrous. Because this will make the kids to learn that, okay, anytime I feel something bad, I cry. My kids will hurry to rescue me. So then this becomes what? I cannot struggle. Because I struggle, the alarm goes off, I cry, my parents come to my rescue, it is done. This is something that will teach the kids that they cannot struggle at all. If we do this, we let them like be indulged. Every time they have a desire for something, they will get everything they wish. They only learn how to master their emotions when they are allowed to struggle with them. They have to struggle with their emotions. I want something, I cry for it, but I'm not allowed to get it. No one will ever be broken because they cry. Kids will never die because they cry. They will have strong lungs.
Their moms will
be
broken.
Will break. Yeah. So after the idea about understanding that kids can struggle with their feelings and they can express their feelings, it's okay to feel whatever they feel. Then chapter 8 and 9 and 10, speaking about setting limits to behavior. So we take the side of the feelings, but we set limits to behavior. They express their feelings, but they cannot act on them. So these 3 chapters speak about limits. Children do not always need consequences, but they need limits. And this is the most important thing to understand. Clear and firm boundaries that protect our children from their own powerful drives. Kids will always want to go wherever they wish because they do not know what are the boundaries that keep them safe. This is the parents' first responsibility, is to let them know this is where they stop, where the desires stop. This is the end of whatever they are asked. Provide them with a safe place to thrive. They found that kids that are just born, if they are left uncovered, they cry. It's amazing. So you find that the kids who are born, they put them in like this kind of clothes. Yeah, and they clothe them so much, and even sometimes they keep them closed. So they find them, they stop crying because they feel protected, because they have limits. It's amazing how like these kind of limits convey love, because they are protected. They have boundaries, clear boundaries, and this is something that's very essential for them. They feel cared for and loved as experience the peaceful presence of adults who love them enough to set clear limits to their behavior. So the key of setting good limits is that limits are clear, they are firm, and they are consistent. Kids will test our limits, and they'll try always to push them. If our limits are not clear and they are not consistent, يعني مرة هقول مرة هقول لا. One time I'll say yes, one time I'll say no. It's based on my mood and my ability to resist. So النهارده I'm not in a mood to say no, so they push through it. But then they will know that they can get through my limits whenever I'm in a bad mood, or whenever I'm busy, or whenever I'm talking with someone. Kids are so good in reading their parents and knowing when they can get through their limits. So I have to be very careful with this. As in sports, for example, you cannot find like good sports where the players they set the rules. We play whatever we wish. If there is no clear rules, there is no sports. Then it is the same also applies on how we set limits for our children. So in these chapters, there are multiple strategies for like how to set limits. There are maybe something like maybe 10, 15 ways. One of them just saying no. No, by the way, is the single most important word that we ever help our children with. This word, no. And no, that's clear. And when we say it with no going back. So one time I remember I read this it's a survey that asked people who graduated from college. Those kids were successful, and they asked them, what is the thing that you appreciate the most for your parents? So they said the times when our parents said no, and why we were so upset, and we asked for something, and they insisted or no on the word no. This word no, the building character, the build the character. This word no. Another thing is maybe actually instead of saying no, maybe you can say not yet. So this is again, I'm not speaking about no absolutely, but it's not the time or not the place. So not yet meaning okay, I will agree, but later. So and we can explain when it's going to be yes. Maybe instead of saying no, maybe you can give them a pathway to yes. Maybe I will grant it to you when you do this. I want to go and play outside. Okay. When you clean your room this way, you can go and play. So I give him or her the way to yes. Okay, I want to play on my computer. Okay, when you finish your homework. So there is a yes, but it's conditioned on finishing your homework. So this is again, I'm setting limits. Yes here is based on something else. One of the important steps also in setting limits is to acknowledge the child before you tell him what to do. This is something that it's important for how the kids feel. Sometimes when we see our children, the first thing that comes to our mind is what we want them to do before we acknowledge them as people. So one time I remember one of the kids in his confession was saying, every time I see my dad, he has something like negative to comment on me. So he's saying, okay, انت شعرك ما منعكش ليه؟ هدومك مش معمولة ليه؟ البنطلون بتاعك عامل كده ليه؟ So actually this is something that I'm sure his parent or his dad didn't mean it. Yeah, every time he has a negative thing to say to him, he sees him. So maybe this is something we need to do it. Like, I welcome the person, I make him feel like loved, care, and then I can tell the comment that I want him to do. Usually, whenever we come from outside, especially dads, we come from outside and maybe we notice what is negative. Sometimes we do it with each other, even dads and moms. We comment on what is missing before we even we say hi. Okay, so this is again one of the things that before we set limits, we acknowledge the person, and before we talk, tell him or her what's missing. Another strategy in setting limits is let the child think for himself or herself what needs to be done. Meaning, if we keep telling the child what needs to be done, like we name it all the time, so he will be always like waiting for instructions. And this is something that خلاص I receive in commands. I don't have to think on my own. So and this is not helpful. So how do they think for themselves? How to to develop the mind of a person who can think of priorities, tasks, and develop the mind of I can take care of myself and I can think of for myself. If I have a problem, how can I handle it? I like it so much. One of the here the strategies. Somebody say to his parents, "I am bored at the church." So he said that all what you need to do is to ask him, "Okay, this is a problem, but we will go to the church anyhow. What should we do if you are bored in the church?" So he is getting back the question to the child. So you need to think what need to be done. For me as a parent, it's not a question if we go to the church or not. But for you need to think what need to be done in the church. The child is trying to get it to his parent that you have a problem as a parent. I am bored. You need to fix this problem for me. Maybe not to go to the church. But when I get it back to you, it's not my problem to fix. The limits is we go to church. Okay. But I want you to think, and I maybe think with you, okay, what needs to be done? What should we do if you are bored in the church? So this is again will make the child to think and try to find for himself or herself a solution. Because again, one of the things that kids will always try to do is like you get it back to you. By the way, when kids grow with this kind of mindset, they grow with it as adults. And sometimes you go to the even coming to confession when have somebody has a problem and come to مثلا أبونا give a solution and the person give a problem. And said what about doing this? I say no, it's not going to work. And then what about this? That's not going to work. And we go into this. So it becomes like okay, you should think of the solution, not نفكر في مشكلة. كل واحد المفروض يفكر في حل في المشكلة on his own. People around us trying to help us, not in order to create مشاكل لنفسي. So one of the also strategies helpful in setting limits, be specific in giving directions and instructions. Like for example, if you want him to clean the room, his room or her room, sometimes the task is so vague. Clear your room. Maybe it is something that's need to be broken into small tasks. Okay, maybe like the clothes on the floor, put them inside your closet. Maybe like set your bed, so I can give something that's clear and you cut it into small tasks. Helpful also way in setting limits is to give choices. I like the idea about giving choices, especially when kids they grumble about food. One of the areas where setting limits is so crucial is the dining table. When they say I don't like to eat this, so when parents can say, okay, what do you want to eat? You have this or this, and that's it. So you choose here. So I give you the right to choose, and I give you the time frame when you are going to eat, and that's it. If you don't eat within this time limit between this and this, then there is no time, there is no food, and otherwise you miss the meal. If you miss the meal, you will be hungry until the next meal. So again, here by doing this, what will happen is that the child will understand that there are limits. I have a choice to make, otherwise I will endure the consequences. So and again, this is what if we are lenient at home, sometimes we are so lenient at home and we try to be harsh outside, because outside the home is embarrassing in front of people. But if we are lenient at home, we cannot be strict outside, because outside the kids will, oh, why? Oh, this is what we learned at home. One of the things also helpful in setting limits is to give some kind of transition. If you wanted to turn the TV off, maybe it's helpful to say, I'm going to turn it off in 5 minutes. So this again will help the kids to prepare them mentally. But if you say, I'm going to turn it in 5 minutes, it is 5 minutes. You cannot say something and then you go back and then you give another 5 minutes. If you give another 5 minutes, then there is no limits. They know that you don't mean it, and then they will push you all the way. Another strategy also in setting limits is to consider inviting them to think about what needs to be done. Like, for example, like they say, I want to go to play. So the question here, like an example, say, what has to be done before you can go out to play? I want to go to play. So when you ask a question, what needs to be done before you go to play? You want them, for example, like, I want to set my room, I want to start and make my homework. So when you ask the question, then you have to think about it. Maybe they will come with this, and you can guide them, and you can ask them, is your homework is done, finished? Then this can be helpful as well. The idea about setting limits also, it's helpful that the kids feel cared for, because the more children feel cared for, the more they will care how we feel. It is the relationship at the end of the day between us and our children. Kids will care about how we feel when we feel that we care about them. Because when we come to consequences, the better the relationship, it's much easier when you say that I'm sick, that they will run and say, no, I cannot take. Sometimes just like parents can say, you know what, I don't want to talk with you. This can make the kids like, I cannot go to sleep. This says the relationship is healthy. So this is again, when kids feel like genuine love and care and time spent with them, then limits are easy to be enforced. Sharing information helps children also understand the rationale behind our limits. Like, when you say, مثلا, don't take food upstairs because this will get insects. Okay. Again, when we say something like this, you don't have to go into the nagging, by the way. The information should be one sentence, because the second time, it is not about they don't understand the first time. The second time is about they don't like what you said and they want just like to force the limit. So you just say it once and then there is no second time. The second time is with consequences. So beware of this nagging or lecturing. Okay. Lecturing or nagging is not limits. It is just waste of time and energy, and this is not helpful. The idea about being lenient at home and being strict in public, this does not work this way. لما البيت نبقى احنا سايبين العيال, we leave our kids do whatever at home and we try to be strict outside, they get confused. They will apply what usually they are used to do at home, so we have to be careful with this. The dinner table, as again I said, is the practice field. when we set limits, we don't have to be mean or angry, but we need to be firm. So one of the things mom usually say that I lose my temper, أنا بقعد أصوت or I yield. We don't have to do this. The firm being limit is enough. خلاص. يعني you say no and that's it. So there's no no need to scream to force the limit. Yielding to the kids, but this is what makes things complicated. Because if you indulge the child's desires, this undermines their capacity to learn. And the result will be a selfish, impulsive, demanding, disrespectful child. Sadly, sometimes under the understanding of love, we create these children. Selfish, impulsive, demanding, disrespectful. When أولاد أصلا إحنا بنحبهم. This is not love. If we create this kind of kids, we are setting them to fail. Our long-term goal from setting limits, and the الولاد دول, they acquire these limits and they choose to live by them whenever they are on their own. The success of this kind of setting limits is that the kids, they will choose to apply these limits whenever they are outside home. So the real test for the success of these limits is when the kids are leaving home, they're in college, and they choose willfully to live by this limit. At that time, you will know that these limits really worked. And the الولاد دول, they understood why these limits were there. And they understood why you did this to them. They appreciated the limits and they appreciated your love. They understood انت كنت بتعمل كده ليه. فعشان كده اللي احنا بنعمله دلوقتي ده مع اولادنا when they are so young, we will see its results later when they are 18 and above. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. And again, being consistent, this will make them later on ان احنا the kids will bear the fruits. The idea about limits, it's like in relationship to the kids, the kids' age. Imagine that you have what do you call it? If you have a frame, what's the name of the word? If you have a frame and inside there's a grid.
A graph, like
the side that's what do you call this?
Grid? Like a graph paper, but
the graph. What's the name of it? Chart. Not a chart. Has a name.
Quadrant? Just the 4 boxes though?
They have multiple ones. It has a name. You don't have something like this. Matrix.
Matrix. Yeah.
Like this. So whenever the kids are young, so they move within matrix like this. So here the boundaries are very clear, and also the limits are very strict and the areas are very narrow. So whenever they move between narrow areas. When they get older and they are showing responsibility, we have to take some of these grids out. So this will look like, because they are showing maturity and are getting older, we take, for example, some of these out. So this kind of matrix will look like this, maybe with older age, something like this. So less boundaries and more space for them to move. So the more they get all of this under our watch, they still live with us. So get into another matrix where things are like this, until maybe the last year in high school looks like this, because when they are in college, there is nothing here. This doesn't exist. Okay. So the idea here, why it is important that things move like this, because they have to make choices under our watch, and we have voluntarily to remove some of the limits that are tighter when they are young. This is important for us to understand, so we not fall into what the author says about the trust trap. the kids play with us something called the trust trap, saying, "You don't trust me." No, we trust you, but usually, like the trust is age appropriate. If you are here, I trust you with this area. Okay. If you are older and you are showing responsibility, I trust you with a bigger space. You cannot be in this age and I trust you with a space like this. So it's not about like whom you are, it is about of like which age are you in. Okay. And this is again it's important for us because he cannot be in high school, a senior, and I put him in a grid on a matrix like this. I'm suffocating him. This is not something that's also another. Sometimes we think that we being like putting him in a matrix like this when he in high school, we think that is because I'm a caring parent. No, we are suffocating the person here. If I put him like this is again, this is not setting limits. So this is important for us to understand which kind of matrix or which kind of limits we are setting for our children, which age, and which. I always say that you cannot, for example, discipline a senior high school by taking his phone from him, or like taking his car from him. This doesn't work this way. Kids in college cannot be the idea about punishing or disciplining a college kid should not be on the like options
On the horizon.
on the horizon for parent. Okay, you have a problem with him or her. Okay, it's a problem.
But doesn't we usually punish by taking out something that they like?
The idea about punishing a
Age
college kid,
appropriate.
punishing a college kid, you cannot. Yeah,
You
this
can
is
just
not.
talk to him, you
It
can do
shouldn't
anything
be.
else.
It shouldn't be the case. The idea about using authority over a college kid is something that's really something I don't see as helpful. Why use discipline? To help the person.
Mhm.
If I use discipline and this is going to break the person, not helping him, making him to rebel, then why I'm doing that? The idea about consequences is not to inflict pain.
But everybody do mistakes, so they can, even if they are in college, they can still do a mistake.
I
And
understand.
I need to try to correct it, even by conversation. I mean,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be punishment.
Yeah. So here again, the idea of consequences is what is about. I want you to learn a lesson. All right. So if it's not about inflicting pain, we will come to this in idea of consequences. So if this is going to make like the results opposite, will make the person to rebel. So why I'm doing this? There's no point in doing that. Okay. So again, the idea here, going back into setting limits and being careful. The setting limits does not stop children from misbehaving, but this is something for us again. We have to stick to what we should expect in return to limits. We should expect pushbacks. So this is the normal behavior that kids most of the time. It's very exceptional. That kids will always like accept the limits and live by them. This will be something that's God's grace. Yeah. Okay. Chapter 11 is about responding to pushback. We set limits, limits are firm, we are applying them in the right way, and the kids are pushing back. So, how we handle this? Pushback is not a problem to solve, but it is also an important part of the learning process. Um, Sometimes only firm limits are the only consequence we can and should give. So, in return of pushback, just stick to firm limits. Yeah, he does not like the limit. He is like بيخبط دماغه في الحيط. He is like crying. Nothing more than the firm limit. It is no still. That's it. What will happen is sometimes like we tell, oh, he didn't want to eat and he kept crying. And then what you do? I gave him whatever he wanted. No, leave him to cry. This is what he needs. Just he needs to like let him know that these are the limits. Again, you have a choice, and that's it. Before giving a consequence to push back, we can ask why our child might be pushing back. Maybe checking in. Is there anything that needs to be done here? There's some kind of correction or not? Because maybe he is not feeling well. Maybe he is sick. Maybe something needs to be done on my part before I say I'm going to apply a consequence here. The child has to understand that resistance is futile, will not get him anywhere. This is crucial. If the child understands that by resistance I can get what I want, then the whole limits will fall apart. Resistance is futile. There is no way. It's exactly like when in any like terrorist attack, when they kidnap like an airplane, if any country would allow the kidnappers to get whatever they want, so they are setting themselves that okay, anybody get kidnap an airplane for us, and then you get whatever you want. It will never happen that they will allow to happen, even if they're going to lose everybody on the airplane. It's very foolish because no country will ever allow it. So this is something that's okay. No matter how much will be the losses, no country will ever allow a kidnapper to get whatever he wants by kidnapping an airplane, because you cannot repeat again. So again, resistance is futile. Resistance is futile. Nothing. Pushback will never get you whatever you want. So sometimes it is best just to ignore their words. When they say, I don't like what you said, you don't like me, all of these kinds of pushback, it's okay. Just don't say anything. Don't comment on it either. Don't talk back, don't argue. You don't have to react as if you are not feeling anything. So this is one kind of response. Maybe if he tries while he is grumbling, maybe comment on the positive effort. I like that you are trying. Thank you for taking whatever your toy back to to your room. We should only give our rationale once, because if they are asking more than once, they are not really interested in the rationale. They are trying to resist the rule. So there is no point in trying to explain and rationalize 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Sometimes kids, whenever they are like intelligent, they want to go more and more and more. Why you want to do this and why? Don't go into this. Give your rationale once. That's it. Timeout can be something that's good. Timeout is not a punishment, by the way. Timeout is something that keeps them away to calm down, to think about it. Okay. And timeout should be in a corner where you have no access to entertainment, because timeout is not something that's to be like okay, it's a reward. Go out and have some fun here. Get by yourself so you can calm down, cool down. Okay. It is appropriate to give a consequence for inappropriate pushback. If while I'm pushing back, I say something as a child, I say something that's inappropriate, it's time for a consequence then. Okay. If I'm crying, if I'm upset, it's okay. I go to my room, it's fine. All of that doesn't call for a consequence. But if the reaction is inappropriate, it's a time for a consequence. To talk about this, and the author talks about this in the next chapters. The best response to painful statement like I hate you to you as parent is to ignore it at the time, and you talk about it later. You bring him back and say back, ask about like, yani, what did you mean when you say something that was something good, was something kind, nice, or to say something like this. Okay. Speaking about consequences, but when they cross the line while they are pushing back. Consequences should be our last resort. It should not be the first thing that to come on our mind. He has a very nice analogy. He says every country has an army, but they are not thinking of using their military force the first time they get in a conflict. Imagine the United States, they get in a conflict with a country, and then the first thing they think about, oh, let us use our military force. This doesn't work this way. But when you have a military force that's respected by all of the countries in the world, then all of the countries they think twice before going into with us into like escalating the conflict, because they know that we have a mighty army. So this is again the idea. Kids know that we have our tools by which we can apply consequences, but it is the last resort. So this is number one. When we think about consequences, this should not be The first thing to come to my mind is number one. And this should not be something that we all the time are threatening consequences all the time. Okay, this make them like حاجة كده يعني ملهاش معنى.
We like to expedite sometimes, so.
Yeah, it's like surgery that I will start with the surgery. Actually, they become ineffective when this becomes the first line. If the relationship is strong, then just a word or just maybe a look will be enough. And this is again a good test for the relationship. And the relationship is what we do in between the crisis. Get what usually happen between the difficult times. Consequences are not meant to stop bad behavior, but to teach about life. And this is again how life treats us. There are always consequences for our actions. And we should not always run to rescue our children from their bad choices, because life will never treat them this way. When they do a mistake, this mistake will call for a negative, logical consequence. Let it happen, because this will teach them something about life. Lectures or anger or threats never work. We do not need to be mean or angry or keep lecturing them. It is good always to think or decide what I'm going to do instead of what I will make my child to do. Meaning, always think what I will do if he does this. Not only with our children, but even with the people around us. How am I going to plan my action if the people around me will do this? This is very helpful, because this will keep me in control. Instead of I will push this person to do this, or I expect this person to do that. This is not helpful. There are natural consequences. Natural consequences are results that children can experience without requiring us as parents to do anything. Natural consequences like what? He doesn't study, doesn't do homework, go to school, get bad grade, get in trouble with his teacher. This is natural. Okay. It's cold. He told him, put on your jacket, didn't put your jacket, go out and catch cold. Okay. You can comment on it later. You told him, I told you, you should have paid attention. If he makes a mistake with school and then he gets in trouble with his teacher, we should not run to school and try to correct things with the teacher. Because when we do this is we teach the children a bad lesson. You can do a mistake and I will bail you out. This is not helpful. Our consequences should be logical. Logical means what? Means, as the book says, related, respectful, reasonable, reveal. 4 R's. Related, respectful, reasonable, reveal. And then he explains, related means what? Related to the trespass, meaning if you cannot play nicely, you need to play alone. So he did a mistake, and then the consequence is related to the transgression. You are not playing together. If you are not playing together nicely, you cannot play together. You cannot play alone. Sometimes our consequences, they have nothing to do with the transgression. It's something maybe he is he broke something, and then he said, "I'm not going to go to the camp." What is the camp to do with respectful. برضو this should be, and again, something that with respect. There is no consequence that say I beat him, or I cuss at him, or I make him to be afraid. This is not a consequence. This is anger with me as a parent. Reasonable. the consequences are not just to inflict pain. Reasonable, like for example, if you cannot sit still at the table, this is the example he's giving, you can sit in a time out or eat after everyone else is finished. This is reasonable. برضه ما ينفعش ان هو يعني one time like يعني parent give يعني a consequence if you don't eat I will take your tablet to the end of the school year. This is so inappropriate يعني and she couldn't actually يعني do this because it's too much. So what had happened is like she applied it for a couple of days. She gave it back and then she taught him a lesson that I just say empty words and I say something too big or خلاص. But this is something that again يعني consequences should be logical, meaning should be related, respectful, reasonable, and revealed in advance. I talk about it. If I know what kind of misbehavior I'm expecting, I can say, let us talk about it. What will happen if you do this? What do you think I should be doing? And then actually I can get them engaged in the process so the child will know if I will do this, this is what's going to happen. And the last chapter, chapter 13, speak about giving consequences, saying how we should give the consequence. Say it once, say it second time with a consequence, and then give the consequence. Meaning, you say this is no. Second time, if you keep doing this, I will do that. The third time, you give the consequences. There is no nagging, no lecture. You don't have to go into like redundance talking about this. Misusing a privilege or a responsibility, maybe actually what is needed is to tighten the limit. Maybe watching the TV or using the technology before doing the homework, so you lose the technology. Is a logical consequence. That's it. So this is the consequence. It's simple and easy, and it makes sense. Maybe asking for forgiveness is a logical consequence. Maybe the person like just saying sorry or this should be enough. Although this is when a child comes and say I'm sorry, this should be okay. As a logical consequence. We should resist the temptation of adding to the consequences a lecture. Okay, it's enough that you took from him whatever kind of privilege. There is no need into going into lecturing or a lesson or giving it with emotional intensity. Okay. We should avoid vague or empty threats. And we should be quick to forgive our children as soon as they get themselves back together. This is important not for the relationship between us and them, but also to understand the forgiveness. And this is important to understand God's forgiveness برضو. يعني ازاي يصدقوا ان ربنا بيforgive them واحنا we don't give them this example. Privileges are reward for being responsible. Of course, removing them is a logical consequence. If you are abusing them, can be taken away, and this is again can be logical consequences. So this is the summary of principle 4. And again, this book is such a wonderful book, one of the best books about parenting. I hope you are enjoying reading it. Have any question on this chapter?
I have a question. I feel sometimes not lecturing but explaining clearly the situation and what is the right way to handle it.
We understand, I think, and as the author says, that the idea is not about if the kids are missing the meaning. Sometimes they nag because they don't accept it. But you don't need to explain beyond one time. You can say it and then you get it. Second time, they are nagging. They are not really misunderstanding the thing. Okay. Anything? شكرا لوقتكم. Thank you very much. ننخش أربعة.
I think I took all the things.
صلي. شد. the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and God, I mean, Lord, make us worthy to pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Whatever that is in heaven, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil one. Christ Jesus, our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever and ever. And now, Lord God, the Father, the grace of the only begotten Son, our Lord, the God and Savior, Jesus Christ, community of the Holy Spirit be with you. Go in peace, and the peace of the Lord be with you. Bye.